A refugee camp is a temporary settlement built to receive refugees. Camps with over 100,000 people are common, but as of 2012 the average-sized camp housed around 11,400. Usually they are built and run by a government, the United Nations, or international organizations, or NGOs. But there are also unofficial refugee camps, like the Calais jungle, where refugees are largely left without support of governments or international organizations. Refugee camps generally develop in an impromptu fashion with the aim of meeting basic human needs for only a short time. Due to crowding and lack of infrastructure, some refugee camps can become unhygienic, leading to a high incidence of infectious diseases, including epidemics. If the return of refugees is prevented, a humanitarian crisis can result or continue. Refugee camp typically describes a settlement of people who have escaped war in their home country and have fled to a country of first asylum. But some camps also house environmental migrants and economic refugees. Some refugee camps exist for decades and people can stay in refugee camps for decades, both of which have major implications for human rights. Refugee camps may sometimes serve as headquarters for the recruitment, support and training of guerrilla organizations engaged in fighting in the refugees' area of origin. Such organizations often use humanitarian aid to supply their troops. Rwandan refugee camps in Zaire and Cambodian refugee camps in Thailand supported armed groups until their destruction by local military forces. Facilities of a refugee camp can include the following: an administrative headquarters to coordinate services, sleeping accommodations, hygiene facilities, clinics, hospitals and immunization centers, food distribution and therapeutic feeding centers, communication equipment, security, including protection from banditry and peacekeeping troops to prevent armed violence, places of worship, schools and training centers, markets and shops. Schools and markets may be prohibited by the host country government in order to discourage refugees from settling permanently in camps. Many refugee camps also have places for refugees to collect water, usually from tanks where water is offloaded from trucks, then filtered or treated with disinfectant chemicals such as chlorine. Bathing areas, often separated by gender, cemeteries or crematoria, locations for solid waste disposal. In order to understand and monitor an emergency over a period of time, the development and organization of the camps can be tracked by satellite and analyzed via GIS. Duration: people may stay in these camps, receiving emergency food and medical aid, until it is safe to return to their home countries. If it becomes safer, they can make use of voluntary repatriation programs. In some cases, often after several years, the host country government may prefer to see that refugees are resettled in third countries, which accept refugees seeking asylum. In rare cases, they may be naturalized by the country they fled to. Although camps are intended to be temporary, some exist for decades and people can stay in refugee camps for decades, both of which have major implications for human rights. Some Palestinian refugee camps have existed since 1948, while other well-known camps such as Budaburam in Ghana or Dadaab and Kakuma in Kenya have hosted populations for over 20 years. Work and employment in refugee camps. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees has a policy of helping refugees work and be productive, using their existing skills to meet their own needs and needs of the host country. 2. Ensure the right of refugees to access work and other livelihood opportunities as they are available for nationals. Match program interventions with corresponding levels of livelihood capacity and needs identified in the refugee population, and the demands of the market. Assist refugees in becoming self-reliant. Cash, food, rental assistance delivered through humanitarian agencies should be short-term and conditional and gradually lead to self-reliance. Activities as part of longer-term development. convene internal and external stakeholders around the results of livelihood assessments to jointly identify livelihood support opportunities. If enough aid is provided to refugees, it can help host countries too, through stimulus effects. However, refugee support does not usually provide cash to create effective demand, and refugees without cash are restricted by host countries lest they depress wages and opportunities for locals. Host countries also sometimes wish to avoid cultural and political changes that integrating refugees would cause. Refugee resettlement. Globally, about 17 countries regularly accept quota refugees from refugee camps. The UNHCR works in partnership with these countries, and resettlement programs, such as the Gateway Protection Program, support refugees after arrival in the new countries. In recent years, most quota refugees have come from Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, Liberia, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and the former Yugoslavia, which have been disrupted by wars and revolutions. In the context of the Arab-Israeli conflict, Jewish refugees were initially resettled in refugee camps known variously as immigrant camps, Marborot, and development towns, prior to absorption into mainstream Israeli society. Conversely, many Palestinian refugees remain settled in Palestinian refugee camps, while others have been absorbed into Jordanian society or the Palestinian territories. Since 1948, the sovereign state of Israel has guaranteed asylum and citizenship to Jewish refugees, while the self-declared state of Palestine remains unable to absorb the Palestinian refugees, due to lack of de facto sovereignty over its claimed territories. Notable refugee camps. Camps for Syrian refugees in Iraqi Kurdistan, including Demitz in Dohuk Governorate, Arbat in Sulaymaniyah, and Kushtapa, Bazirma, Gawilan, Kawir Gosk and Darashakran in Erbil Governorate. Camps in the east to Chad, such as Bridging Camp, hosting approximately 250,000 refugees from the Darfur region in Sudan. Zaatari Refugee Camp in Jordan, hosting 144,000 Syrian refugees as of July 2013. Although the population in November 2013 had dropped to around 112,000 as the Syrian civil war continues. Budaburin Refugee Camp in Ghana, home to more than 12,000 Liberians. Camps in the south of Chad, hosting approximately 50,000 refugees from Central African Republic. Dadaab refugee camps in northeastern Kenya, established in 1991 and now hosting more than 330,000 Somali refugees. It is by far the world's largest refugee camp, and even if taken separately, Hagadera, Dagahaley, IFO2 and IFO were the world's four largest camps in 2013. Camps on the Thai-Cambodian border between 1979 and 1993. Nong Samet, Nong Chan, Sakareo, Site 2, Khao Dang. Whitehead Camp, Hong Kong, considered the world's largest prison in the early 1990s. Philippine Refugee Processing Center for Vietnamese, Laotian, and Cambodian refugees fleeing wars in Indochina. Sarawak refugee camps near Tindouf, southwestern Algeria. Camps for Sri Lankan Tamils, established in India in 1983, with over 110,000 refugees by 1998. Cyprus internment camps to accommodate Jewish refugees and Holocaust survivors. Immigrant camps and Marborot transition camps to accommodate Jewish refugees and immigrants in Israel. Palestine refugee camps. Nayatak refugee camp of Afghan refugees in Iran. Lampedusa Immigrant Reception Center for refugees, asylum seekers and illegal immigrants on the Italian island of Lampedusa. Ras Ajdir refugee camp on Libyan-Tunisian border, housing more than 30,000 Libyan refugees. Hatay province camps for refugees of the Syrian civil war. Daleka refugee camp in the Dur district of Malawi. Halfar, Malta for African illegal immigrants. Nyarugusu refugee camp in Tanzania opened in 1997 and initially hosted 60,000 refugees from the DRC. Due to the recent conflicts in Burundi, it also hosts 90,000 refugees from Burundi. In 2014 it was the 9th largest refugee camp. However, since the conflict in Burundi, it is considered one of the world's biggest and most overcrowded camps. Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya was opened in 1991. It hosts 18 different nationalities. Largest groups are Ethiopians, Sudanese and Somali refugees. In 2014 it was the 3rd largest refugee camp worldwide. Ruuyigi refugee camp in Burundi hosts refugees from DRC. Timișoara Emergency Transit Center for Refugees in Romania. It can accommodate up to 200 people and provides a temporary safe haven for up to 6 months for individuals or groups who need to be evacuated immediately from life-threatening situations before being resettled. There are a number of refugee camps in Nepal hosting Bhutanese refugees. They host Lhotshampas who were forced to flee from Bhutan to Nepal. There are refugee camps in Ethiopia, hosting refugees from Somalia, in Dolo-Odo, in southern Ethiopia. In 2014 Dolo-Odo was considered to be the 2nd largest camp. Jomvu, Hatami and Swalaguru camps near Mombasa, Kenya, were closed in 1997. Refugees, mainly Somalis, were either forced to relocate to Kakuma or were repatriated into unsafe Somalia and given $30 for leaving voluntarily. Yarmouk camp, Syria, once home to 500,000 Palestinian refugees, is just outside Damascus. It has been besieged by Bashar al-Assad's regime, as well as coming under attack by the Islamic State group. Jalalaqsi, Korioli and Sigalo in Somalia. Hart Sheikh, also called Hata Sheikh, and Atang camp in Ethiopia. Benako and Nara in Tanzania. Kala and Mwang in Zambia.